welcome to the Ethos and Persuasion lecture. My name is Brianna Thomas, and I am the Novice Public Forum Lab Leader. I'm excited to talk to you today about all three types of persuasion techniques, but specifically ethos, especially in an online debate setting, in addition to an in-person setting. Let's get into it. There are three types of persuasion techniques in total, which includes logos, pathos, and ethos. These three modes of persuasion come from Aristotle, who once said, "Of the modes of persuasion furnished by the spoken word, there are three kinds. The first kind depends on the personal character of the speaker, ethos. The second, on putting the audience into a certain frame of mind, pathos. The third, on proof or apparent proof provided by the words of speech itself, logos. Persuasion is achieved by the speaker's personal character when the speech is so spoken as to make us think them credible." Now we're going to define each mode of persuasion a little bit more. We'll start with logos. So logos is an appeal to logic. We use this a lot in debate with our evidence. If we didn't have evidence and we didn't do research, a lot of the things that we said would just be baseless claims. But once we do that research and we gather that evidence and we cut our cards and we put our speeches together and we cite people and we quote people, then that is all an effort to rely on the persuasion mode of logos. So next we have pathos, which is an appeal to emotion. A really good example in policy debate is critical literature. A lot of critical literature and identity-based critical literature will involve the experiences and the stories and narratives of marginalized populations. This topic you have this year is a great example where there will be many appeals to pathos. When talking about criminal justice reform, you have to include the discussions of a lot of violences that have occurred towards a certain group of people. A great example is police brutality. Imagine a debater gets up and starts telling the story to a judge and tells the judge to imagine that their family members have gotten shot by the police. How would that make them feel? It's starting to shift the mindset from someone who may once be distant from a problem to be more closer to it and really start to think through and experience those things for themselves. The second example is shifting from larger magnitude impacts to more realistic and probable impacts like structural violence framing. And that can exist in policy, LD, and public forum. For the public forum topic this year, when you all are talking about healthcare, imagine a debater gets up and starts telling a story to the judge about their family member that doesn't have access to healthcare. They ask the judge to think, how would you feel if you didn't have access to healthcare? Could you imagine your life living a certain way? Imagine the racial and class disparities that exist and what these people have to go through. Telling those stories and spreading those narratives creates a sort of empathetic or sympathetic feeling within us to shift our mind and shift our way of thinking to better include and think about those people. But that is all done through an appeal to make us feel something, our emotion, pathos. So now we arrive at ethos, which is an appeal to ethics or the credibility of a speaker, the speaker's character, speaker's integrity. There are four ways that you can define the credibility of a speaker. The first is trustworthiness. Does your audience believe you are a good person who can be trusted to tell the truth? If they do, they're more inclined to listen to you. If they don't think you're a good person, it puts people off and they don't want to listen to you, whether you're telling the truth or not, whether you're winning the debate or not. Your character speaks larger than your words. Your actions speak louder than larger than your words. The second is similarity. Does your audience identify with you? Do they not? How can you use that to your advantage? Authority. Do you have formal or informal authority with your audience? The fourth is reputation. How much expertise does your audience think you have in this field? Especially important in debate, because if you are talking about things and you're not making sense, then in future rounds, if you have similar judges over and over again, they're going to stop listening to you because they don't think you have a good reputation. or that reputation will spread to other judges. Now, ethos, pathos, and logos realistically work together to balance each other out. All are necessary, neither is more important than the other. But for the rest of this lecture, I am going to be focusing on ethos and giving you a few tips on how to build your ethos. Here we go. To help you think about how to build your ethos, I'm going to break it down into 3 steps for you to contextualize and hopefully apply in your future debating. Step 1 is the self. Honey, if you don't believe you are credible, you're going to have a really hard time convincing anybody else to believe you're credible. Fake it till you make it can only go so far. So, how can we start to instill and change our own thought process for ourselves? How can we start to believe that we are credible, that we are persuasive? Here are a couple tips. Self-care and relaxation. So many times debate is such a stressful activity. We have so much preparation to do. We have so much research. We have to cut cards. We have to talk to our partners. We have to talk to our coaches. We have to turn in assignments, so on and so forth. Take a break. Find time to relax. Find strategies of self-care, yoga, exercise, breathing, stretching, singing, makeup, play your instrument, watch your movies. I love watching anime. It relaxes me. If you like anime, we're going to get along great. Whatever it is for you, you need to remember to always prioritize your mental, emotional, and physical well-being before anything else, because that's always going to set you up to perform well later on. The second tip is power posing. I love a good power pose. If you just pop your hands on your hips real quick like a superhero for 30 seconds, a minute, and just let yourself revel in your greatness and your fabulosity, hunty, you are going to soar. Take the moment to really just build yourself up. Build up your confidence. Allow yourself to believe and embrace that confidence. And no shame, honey. And if you don't look silly, you're not doing it right. It's okay. Take the time for yourself. The third thing you can do is self-proclamation, especially when you go to debate tournaments. Something I used to always do is look in the mirror and say, you're about to win this tournament. You will win this tournament. One of the largest national tournaments at the end of my senior year, I met with my coach, and he asked me, what are your goals for this tournament? I said, I will be top speaker. He said, okay, kind of laughing it off like, go sis, go. I said, I'm not joking. I'm claiming it. Claim your success. Claim your achievements. And what happened? I did get that first speaker. Out of hundreds of debaters, multitude of teams, at a national tournament, I was that top speaker. Because I proclaimed it for myself. I claimed it before anyone else had the chance to. It was mine before the tournament started, period. And that's okay. Believe in yourself enough to be able to make those bold claims, because they won't be bold. You'll make them reality. The next thing you can do is upkeep your appearance. So, formal business attire, casual business attire, you want to make sure that you show up looking professional. Because if you show up to a debate looking kind of sluggish, might be in sweats, you could say a lot of really great things and be very, very smart. Have a lot of friends who debated in basketball jerseys, debated in pajamas, and they said great things. They won some rounds off me. No shade. They did great. They were amazing debaters. But it hurts your initial credibility. First impressions do matter. So when you first walk into a tournament, it's your first tournament ever as a debater, or it's your first time meeting a judge, first time meeting a coach, another team, then the way you upkeep yourself and the way you look could either push yourself forward or it can push yourself back. Now, what I will say on this is it also depends what type of argumentation you're running, right? So when I first started out in college policy debate, I was running the most traditional policy type of arguments. So I wore my blazer, and I wore my power suits, and I wore my nice dresses. However, once I got into critical literature, I started getting into more performative types of debate that required me to dress a little bit differently, and that's okay. I I chose how to dress based on my argumentation so that they would complement each other and propel me to maintain my best ethos, which I did. So that, all to say that your appearance does matter and your upkeep of your appearance matters, but there's not really a right way to appear. Standards of professionalism aren't always true depending on what your argument is and depending what your social location is. That's okay. It's a process to find it out. But it does mean you should be thinking about your appearance, nonetheless. The next thing you can think about is just self-affirmation. I talked about self-proclamation before. This is a little bit different. It's not just claiming achievements for yourself. It's claiming yourself as an achievement. It's saying you are enough, you are kind, you are important, you are intelligent, all the above, so on and so forth. Don't be afraid to speak that positivity into yourself. You don't always have to rely on external modes of affirmation. Affirm yourself and stand in it. External affirmation, you're all great. Also, enjoy my meme. Look at this baby. Believe in yourself. Yes. Step 2 is the community. You need to know your community. Be comfortable with your community. Socialize with your community. So socialization doesn't just mean, hey, how are you? What school are you from? Oh, welcome, judge. Do you have any preferences? That's like the barest of the bare minimum. What it really means to socialize is get to know your judges and your competitors beyond the labels of the judge and competitor, beyond the label of just another coach. The debate community is a community. It's okay to talk to one another about debate, but other stuff too. Get to know each other. Become friends with your opponents. That's totally okay. For your judges, the kinder and nicer of a person you are, the more open and willing they are to actually listening to your arguments. So, being a good person, one of the 4 characteristics I discussed before was trustworthiness. How can the audience know that they can trust you to tell the truth? Be a good person. Be a nice person. How does the audience know that you are a good and nice person? They can't know that unless you talk to them outside of the round. That can be before the round 2. Obviously, there are barriers to that. You don't need to be hitting up adults and coaches and judges on social media or exchanging numbers. There are lines, right? But if you're with your teammates and your coach and you're talking to another team, talking to another coach, that is okay. And that is good so that you can start to understand each other outside of the debate, and sometimes understanding those different worldviews that they may have will affect how you need to approach them in the debate to get their ballot. So in addition to socializing before rounds, right before the round, you should be socializing with the judge. Maybe not just, part of it's just asking for preferences, right? But you want to show up, make sure you are punctual and on time before the judge arrives, so that when they show up and they see you, you're like, oh, hello, judge, we're so-and-so. Do you have any preferences? Where would you like us to sit? And get all the logistics down. Then the first impression they have of you is, wow, you're punctual. You're on top of this. Wow, you're welcoming me? Okay, you seem like you got this under control. You have now established your authority over the room. And that authority implicates your credibility in a positive sense. So then you also want to make sure you're marketing yourself. It's not enough sometimes just to win rounds. Sometimes you can win a lot of rounds and nobody knows who you are. Nobody's heard of you. So it's not so much bragging rights. It's towing the line between marketing yourself and just full-on bragging about yourself. But you do want to make sure that people in the community know your achievements. They know, oh yeah, I just won that tournament 2 weeks back. I did get top speaker at that tournament over here. I did very well. I got deep into elims over here. Start to weave those into conversations naturally so that, one, your competitors will take you more seriously and hopefully will have a lot better debates, but also so your judges, when they see that they're judging on their pairing, they get a little bit excited. They're like, oh, I'm about to judge this debater. They're really good. I'm excited. That builds your reputation. Another one of the characteristics I talked about earlier that builds your ethos. So, socializing is important. Now, preparation preparation is also important, and that can include developing a deep expertise in the topics that you talk about. And that also starts to bring in the balance that I mentioned earlier of logos. So in order to develop that deep expertise, you have to start to research and prepare that evidence, to prepare that logical proof to persuade people. But the act of you doing that research builds that reputation, because when you do that research, you develop that knowledge, then you are able to speak about that knowledge naturally. When you speak about this knowledge naturally, the judge and the audience is like, wow, they really know their stuff. I'm more prone to listen to them. Your credibility has also shot up. So a positive increase of persuasion in logos links to an increase of persuasion in ethos. The second thing you can do is analyze your audience. Another way you can prepare, and that can deal with the characteristics of similarity that I talked about earlier. So when you know who your judge is, you should start to think, how can I adapt to them? Do I need to adapt to them? Are there ways in which we are similar that I can use to my benefit? Are there ways that we're similar that may hinder me, that I need to think about how to change? Are there differences that are going to hinder me? Are there differences that are going to strengthen me? So on and so forth. But all of that deems into that preparation again. So the third thing that you can use in the community is your partner and your squad, your debate team. Hype each other up. Do not be afraid to celebrate one another. I know sometimes it's weird because there's a sense of inter-team competition, and rivals is good. Having a good rival is a very good measuring point to strengthen one another, but also part of a rivalry includes an uplifting and support of one another. You don't want your rival to go down to somebody else. You want to take down your rival, which means you want to support your rival when they do well, and vice versa. And as I mentioned before, that self-affirmation, self-proclamation, it's all great internally, but it doesn't hurt to get it externally as well. And it's okay to receive both. And sometimes it's okay that you can't draw internal affirmation one day. It's like the day before you was all about the yes, I am confident, I am here, I am now, I am everything. And the next day you wake up and you just used too much energy and it's just not there. And you're like, wow, I just really can't get the confidence. Don't be afraid to be like, partner, hype me up, hype me up. And vice versa. Partner, don't be afraid to ask, hey, hype me up, hype me up. And you all can use each other as a resource to build each other up. And the way that you interact with your partner and your team circles back to the trustworthiness trait that I talked about earlier, because if the community sees you as a very positive light on your team, then it makes them want to get to know you more because you're so nice. And then it makes them want to trust you and around because they're like, wow, they're really nice. Now, I'll talk about the consequences a little bit as well on the other side. So if you're not a nice person, or you might treat people a little bit rudely, or you come off mean to people, that means you have decreased your ethos. People do not trust you and they don't want to listen to you, which means you could be the smartest person in the room, but if you're being rude to your opponent, it's a turnoff. And at best, it ruins your speaker points. At worst, it costs you the round. I have been on judge panels where judges have voted people down purely because they were rude. That team won the debate by far. Won the debate. Better debaters. The judge was like, nope, you were rude. Sorry, not sorry. So it matters. Your credibility matters. The way you perceive and present yourself in front of other people matters. So take the time to invest in your community, and the community will invest in you. Step 3 is the round. So how do we build our ethos during our speech, during our debate round? Honestly, a lot of these are going to reflect just characteristics of an effective public speaker, because that is you building your reputation in the moment. That is you building that trust in the moment. If you are kind in a round and you are respectful to your opponents in the round, judges will want to trust you more. They'll be more open-minded to listening to you. If you are giving it your all and you are just spouting all the facts, then it increases your reputation because people want to believe you. They see that you have an expertise in this field of the topic. So, in addition to this, common factors that can also help increase your general efficiency of public speaking and your ethos include your volume. If you are too quiet and a judge has to bend over the desk to try and listen to you, then it's harming your credibility because it's no one can hear a word you're saying. On the other side, if you're too loud or you're screaming, it makes it really hard to listen to you because you are literally hurting our eardrum. And we don't want to listen to you because you're just shouting and you're hurting our ears. Why would we want to listen to you? So find that good medium and have a good, confident, and assertive tone that makes people comfortable to listen to you, but also draws them to listen to you. The second thing you can do is eye contact. And it's weird because, of course, we're going to have our pre-written speeches and our blocks and our front lines, and that is okay, whether we're reading them from paper or we're reading them from the computer. But we have to start to, one, memorize portions of our speeches so that we can take breaks and look up, or two, start relying on our improvisation a little bit more. For those of you who've been debating for a while, a lot of these arguments should be a little natural to you, and you should understand concepts more than you did in the past. The more you argue the same topics or the same arguments over and over again, impacts are a great example. I don't think you need to rely on the blocks. Blocks are supposed to be like training wheels and a stepping stone. At some point, you gotta take them off and just let yourself soar. Why is this so important? Eye contact. Eyes are the gateway to the soul. The moment you look at your judge or judges in the eyes, it commands them. It lets them know this is important. You need to pay attention. I am looking at you. It's not I'm reading off my computer that's not really paying attention to you so you can kind of zone out. It is I am watching you. So flow, get my arguments down, and that's it. Again, that's that authority coming back into play. You have now commanded the room to pay attention and respect you and respect your arguments. Having that authority subsets or sets aside the authority that the opponents have created and puts you at a larger advantage to get the ballots, all the ballots. So the next tip is facial expressions. You should have them. Don't be monotone. If you are a blank face talking about whatever you want to talk about, people will zone out. They just will. So part of maintaining that authority in the round is making sure that you are using your intonation and you're using your play of your tone and your pitches to keep people engaged and keep people interested and involved. And facial expressions can help with that as well. Using your eyes, my eyebrows have been moving all over the place this whole time. I've been moving my head. Sometimes I'll smile. That's okay. The changes in facial expression are also important. Even if you're not monotone, if you maintain only one facial expression the entire time, that'll also get people pretty bored quickly. So the changes that you have in your intonation, the changes that you have in your facial expression is what constantly keeps people changing with you so that they can modify their attention to keep going with whatever you're saying. So the next tip is body language. It's important. You can't be slouching over. You can't have your head popped to the side. You can't have your hands all over the place or your hip popped out, because it all sends messages. And you could be giving the best speech about your topic, but if you look bored or disinterested and over it, then there's just going to be, 2 plus 2 don't equal 5. It won't add up. That body language will now take away from the content that you were speaking. The form overcame your content. And in that moment, you have lost your credibility. You have lost your authority. You have lost your ethos. So, stand up straight. Keep your shoulders relaxed. Your head tall. This is especially true when you're reading from paper or your laptop. Don't be all up in your computer. Don't have your head all the way down. Because at that moment, it also is weird to watch. And it leaves people confused. And it shows that you're not engaged with the audience at all. You're so focused on what is in front of you rather than who is in front of you. So, keep your body language neat at all times. Feet shoulder width apart. It's great. So the next characteristic is your breathing patterns. So I'm going to call out my policy folk real quick because this applies to you more than anybody else. Spreading, right? I am a fan of people who spread well. What does it mean to spread well? It's not just speaking really fast. It is speaking quickly, efficiently, clearly, and at a pace. There is a pace. Even though it's fast, there is a pace involved. And that pace involves knowing where to place your breaths. They do this thing, and this is going to probably freak some of you PFers out and LDers, but some of y'all do it too, where you don't take the deep breath that you need. You take a shallow breath from your chest and your shoulders, and then you run down like the middle of a sentence, and then you start hyperventilating. You're like, oh my gosh, how distracting is that? When a judge is in their work and they are flowing, they are following along, and all of a sudden they hear, or, no, that hurt me right now. Y'all can't be doing that no more. So instead of breathing from up here, breathe from your stomach. It's called your diaphragm. Take a good deep breath and then let it out over what you can. Do not force yourself to keep talking when you are running out of breath. Stop. Take a new breath. That pause is going to be so much more efficient and manageable than the hyperventilation. And we want y'all to take care of yourselves. It really just ain't healthy to do that. So, learn how to spread well if you're going to spread at all. The next thing is intonation, which I've already talked about a little bit, which is the changes in your pitch patterns. Don't be monotone. Again, not really going to recover that because I just did. So, the next is passion. When you are talking about an argument, you can't, even if you have intonation and you have the facial expressions and you have good gestures, you have great body language, if you're not passionate about something, there's going to be some ounce of lacking. And sometimes we really may not care about things that we're talking about, but you best believe that when we are in a debate, we are going to defend our position like the world depends on it, because it does. The world is the ballot, and we're getting it. And even if I'm not passionate about single payer, when I read that first constructive, I am going in. Because single payer is the best in the business. And I'm getting that ballot. So, that's an instance where you do fake it till you make it. Find some sort of motivation to draw out that passion in you. A great exercise for this is finding topics that you are passionate about. Talk about those things. Analyze how you speak when you talk about those things. How excited you are. How lighthearted you are. Then cross-apply those characteristics of your speaking to every speech you do from that point on. And you'll be good. So, the next is post-round confidence. Listen, when you was done your last speech, you better walk out like you owned that room. There was one debate where I lost, y'all. I lost. And I knew I lost. But when I finished my last speech, the timer went off, I slammed that timer down, and I sat down like, you better tell me I lost. Tell me I lost. I even walked out there with my coach laughing, having a kiki and a good time. I was like, we won this round. And the moment we got out of that judge's sight and their ability to hear us talking, my coach was like, you feel good, don't you? And I was like, honey, we lost. That was an act. It was a performance. We lost. There's no way. And that I've done that a couple of times. There are times where I trick the judge. My confidence has successfully tricked the judge. My credibility has successfully tricked them. They voted for me, and they cannot justify their decision to the other team, and that's a very awkward RFD to sit through. Who cares? I got the ballot. That's part of debating. It's a skill of persuasion. You use it like you can. There were times where it did not It did not work out. Judges would look at me and be like, that was slick. You tried, sis. No. And I was like, fair. We did lose. But my credibility spoke louder than their content. So those are some things that you can keep in mind when you're in the round to help you build your ethos. If not for that round, for future rounds. Because even the rounds I lost with my post-round confidence, the next time I show up in the round, judges would anticipate. They're like, what's she going to do this time? And it's my job to bring it to them. To deliver what my reputation says I will. Also appreciate my meme. I mean, when all is said and done, that's great, Bree. But what if we debate online and we can't focus on the community and we don't have the in-person credibility that you're talking about? Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about how to build ethos in online debates. While it really don't change much at all, you can still establish trust, your reputation, analyze similarities, and establish your authority, even online. I think one of the biggest things that can create a good distinction is your body language, right? So when you're giving a debate online, it's a little box. You can't really see the whole body. So that means you have to be more intentional with your gestures and make sure they actually make their way into the camera. Sometimes they're not going to see you slouching. Sometimes they will. Just because you are online does not mean you should change the good habits that you will need when we go back to in person. So when you do an online debate, you should still stand. Do you sit in a normal debate? No? Then don't sit in an online debate. Get your stands out. Get some boxes out. Get a chair out. And when your parents look at you and wonder, what are you doing with our furniture? You tell them, I need good posture. You should probably just ask your parents before you just start stacking furniture. Yes. Now, all I have to say, in regards to community, there are probably more efforts that have to be made to socialize, but it's still very possible. And again, like, have the effective measures put in place. Your team will probably still have some sort of like online war room. Tournaments will probably have little lounges here and there for you to go talk to other high schoolers or middle schoolers. Take advantage of those things. Don't just stay with your squad or just stay to yourself. Like a real tournament, you shouldn't just stay in your war room. Go out, talk to people, and even if you do stay within your team, be kind to your team and show people the light that you have on your team, because that will also draw them to you and make them want to get to know you better and make them want to vote for you, which is the end goal of all of this. I mean, friends are nice too. A lot of my close friends are in debate or family. It's amazing. But a ballot is amazing. Okay. Yes. On to the next slide. That is actually all I have to say about this topic. I am sure your respective lab leaders will have some other points that they can add or activities that they want you to do to help you work on your ethos. But when all is said and done, just remember the 3 steps. Ethos starts with the self. If you don't believe you're credible, nobody else will. It also starts with the community. That's step 2. Socialize. Get to know people. Build your reputation. Don't be afraid to do so. You deserve it. Step 3. When you're in the round, be an efficient public speaker. The rest is up to your own will. It'll work out. You'll be fine. Good luck. See you at the tournament. Bye.